Our live episode Sunday night was a blast when we let the chat make every pick in a Bears mock draft. But were their picks any good?
I don't know. We're going to break that down. Every decision that they made on this episode of the How is Subtle podcast. Huddle up! I'm Rob Schwartz with Bear Goggles On. Excited to be here to talk about this mock draft that just took place. As always, co-host Bob Weiss, good friend. How are you?
Huddle up. Feeling good, Rob? Yeah, Sunday was a blast. We did a live episode, we did a mock, and we let the chat make every single pick. And we value our the people who've been following us, their commenters. We really want to foster an environment of open thought here, agreement, disagree. So it was really cool to see everybody come together and get those decisions out there. So as we go through this episode, we're going to break down that mock. Everybody here, let us hear your comments. Do you agree with the chat's picks? Do you agree with our analysis? Let us hear it. Make sure you're liking and commenting.
Yeah, so definitely hit that subscribe button if you're not a subscriber currently. Join in on the community. It'll be a lot of fun to continue this throughout the year. And if you missed it, go back and watch the actual mock draft because you probably can get a little bit more insight from how things were going on that actual episode as well. But like you said, we're going to actually break this down. We're going to decide, did they make good decisions? Did they make bad decisions? Did they let me bully them? Because one person made it very clear, Dr. Truth, that I should not be bullying the chatters, the commenters on who to pick and who not to pick. So let's get into it.
All right. So, yeah, obviously, draft started as expected. Cam Ward, quarterback to the Titans. And then Travis Hunter, which seems to be leaning that way. That's where the Browns are going to go. And then the first pick that we were really interested in was that where is Abdul Carter going to go? Are the Giants going to go quarterback? They're going to take the best player on the board. They want the best player on the board. So that kind of ruled out any trade up for Abdul Carter. But at this point, we did stop, ask the chat, is anybody interested in trading up? At that point, the answer was pretty much no. I mean, Mason Graham was probably the one guy, Rob, you agreed, that seems to be worth trading up for. But no one in the chat seemed to want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Ashton Genty possibly could be someone you could argue with as well, but I'm completely against it. So I'm glad they also decided not to try to move up for him.
Yeah, so at this point, I think we agree with the chat. You're not going to trade up for anybody except the absolute premium player, Abdul Carter. That didn't happen. So let's wait out till 10.
Yeah, I do want to point out, I think it's interesting that I mean, it's an algorithm, but the Jets took Shedeur Sanders. Sorry, yeah. Justin Fields, truthers, but
about that, yeah.
He might be out the door already. I mean, he's only got a 2-year contract. Shedeur might be just pushing him out.
Right. Now to the, who would be available at 10 otherwise, you can just kind of shift Membo to 7 and Golden to 8 and Sanders to 9, and that could still make sense. It really didn't affect the player pool who would have been available at 10.
Right.
So with that, there's really just kind of one blue chip player left on the board, and that was Tyler Warren. So answers to the chat. Are we going to take Tyler Warren at 10, or are we going to explore trade down scenarios? And the only trade down scenario that really made any sense was trading down to 14. So what did chat do?
They decided to make that trade. Tyler Warren was not a blue chip enough talent for them. They decided they wanted the extra picks. So I don't blame them. I think moving back 4 picks and getting another third rounder, even in that self, like even if you didn't get 151, I think that'd be enough value. I didn't hate it at all. I was completely on board with it.
So this is where I am going to criticize a little bit. I'm a big believer in best player available. I'm a big believer in acquiring blue chip talent whenever you can, regardless of that position. One thing the Bears really are sorely in need of are players that project to be at or near the top of the league at their respective positions. And Tyler Warren is an opportunity to kind of get that player, and we pass on that opportunity. It's still a good trade. The value is good, but I probably would have stayed at 10 and grabbed Warren.
And we do have a mock draft out there if you want to go find it. I don't remember which one it is, but we've done a few of them, and we did take Tyler Warren at one point. And clearly Ben Johnson is high on him, right? And I think it was you and Dr. Truth in the chat who were calling him, saying he would be a nightmare for other teams if Ben Johnson got his hands on him. So,
absolutely.
Yeah,
Ben
I don't
Johnson
think
called him a football player. He didn't call him a tight end. He called him a football player.
right. I don't think you could have went necessarily wrong either way, and it's only because I do know which player they ended up going with. I won't give that away yet, but to your point, if the Bears do think Tyler Warren is one of those, 5-6 blue chip guys, I don't think they're going to trade back. I think they're going to select him and be happy about it.
Yeah. So let's see what happened with the next 4 picks between 10 and 14 here. So the Colts ended up trading up to take Jalen Walker. I do believe across the league, some teams have him as a borderline blue player. So I don't think the Colts are necessarily in the market for a defensive end / linebacker like that, but still a very good player. And then Warren, our guy, went 12 to the Cowboys. So unlike a previous mock draft when we were able to trade down and still get our blue chip, it didn't happen in this one. And then the Dolphins, very, let's call him polarizing prospect in Shamar Stewart. Myles Garrett without any of the production. So, we'll see what happens there. But that one blue chip guy, Tyler Warren's off the market. He's not available in the player pool. So it's really just a wide open potential pick here. And I had no idea where chat was going to go with this. And where do you think at that point, Rob?
I mean, at that point, I think I was trying to sway them to Mykel Williams. I think that's when the bullying comments came out and said, "Don't let Rob bully you." We also had a little bit of a chat glitch, and they were kind of not in the chat wasn't working for some reason at that point. So we weren't sure if people weren't commenting, and then it came back. Some people didn't get a chance to vote, but there was a lot of options. There was a lot of ways to go. They could have went offensive lineman still. Kelvin Banks is a guy that could be there at 14 that could be considered worthy of that pick. Again, Mykel Williams, they could have went with pretty much any position.
Well, let's go to the pick. Let's show the pick because the next slide will show all the other potential options that went over. So ended up going Kenneth Grant. Grant, obviously, just a very, very solid football player. He can play the 3-tech, but he's mostly a nose. But I mean, he's just one of these guys you plug onto your defensive line and absolutely do not regret that he's still on your team in 4 years. So I absolutely understood where chat was going. I did not see it coming. I did not see the consensus amongst the chat. It was pretty
quick.
Kenneth Grant was the guy at 14, so I didn't see that coming. When you're talking about best player available, this was a tier. We were opening up a new tier, so it's hard to even argue that there was definitely somebody better. So this is kind of the safest pick that you just know you're going to be happy in. And so I'm saying, okay, Kenneth Grant at 14, I'm okay with that one.
I think it's interesting where I'm going to go with this comment because in the first round, you're trying to find guys that are really going to make your team great. I don't know if Kenneth Grant is that guy, but he's definitely not going to be a bust. He's a very high floor guy, right? A lot of people are attributing a lot of Mason Graham's success to Kenneth Grant. And look, Grady Jarrett, not a spring chicken, right? Andrew Billings, again, not a spring chicken coming off of an injury. Like, one of those two guys out the door in the next year or two, and if Kenneth Grant can just kind of fill their shoes, that would be absolutely amazing. And if it could free up their ends or Jervon Dexter to get to the quarterback, that's kind of how I see that. And I think it was a pretty good pick. I think at 14, maybe it was a little bit higher than I would have had him. Based off memory, I think I have him 18th in my rankings, so it wasn't like too far off. But overall, I think based on where we were in the draft and the other names that were available, I was perfectly okay with Grant as their option.
Yeah, so let's go to this next list here, and that'll kind of tell you two things. One, these are the players that were passed on. So which of these, I kind of focused more on defensive end, wide receiver, offensive line, kind of the value positions in the first round. So these are the ones we passed on. Mike Green, Mykel Williams easily could have been that pick at 14, but they weren't. But this is also the list of players that you trade back up into the first round to get. And that was another thing. Chat was really not interested in packaging our 2 seconds or our second plus our 2/3 that we had. Any of these names on this list here, Rob, you're kind of looking back and say, man, I wish we would have traded up for, or do you think chat was right in letting it ride down to 39?
Yeah, so I think one of our commenters did want to move up for a Marion Hampton, and it was one of those things where he was outvoted. And we saw him go at 32, which was kind of a little bit shocking because, that's the Philadelphia Eagles and getting him with Saquon Barkley. But here's the thing. He wasn't going to get to 39. So you would have had to have moved up for him at some point. So he would be one guy I think would be worthy of potentially moving up for. That said, the running back draft class is absolutely loaded. I know we're going to probably put out a running back episode before the draft comes. There are so many guys, so I don't think necessarily you have to move up for him. James Pierce ended up going to Detroit. That kind of sucks, but not really someone I see as a fit for the Bears. Nick Scorton is a guy that I would have definitely been interested in moving up for. I think he fits the Dennis Allen system. Tyler Booker, if you're looking for an interior lineman. Look, Josh Simmons, if you know that his knee is good, he could be a potential guy to move up for. I know we did have a mock draft duel, like a duel where we had 3 of them, and one of them was where we moved up and we had moved back and got Simmons, I think at like 20 something. So again, a guy I wouldn't be opposed to. That said, from what I'm hearing, they might not be as interested in him as maybe other people are. Shout out to Gary Rappaport. Yeah, out of those guys, I don't really think there's anyone else to jump up for. I know they have a top 30 visit with Josh Connerly, but I think they're hoping he falls to 39.
Yeah, I mean, this is that list where it's interesting to see. You're hoping that these are the list of names that will fall to 39. But I agree with Chat that no, we're not trading up to get these names. We just hope one of them falls. So what did we end up doing at 39?
My guy, Xavier Watts.
This one,
and I didn't bully them. Maybe they've just been listening to me too much. I don't know. You guys chat, comment back and let me know. Was it my earlier comments about Xavier Watts to kind of put him into your thought process here? Because safety is a need, in my opinion. I think he fits the system well. I think he fits any system well, to be honest. And he's one of my favorite players in this draft class.
Yeah, and look at this resume. I mean, it's one thing to say safety isn't necessarily a value position. It's another thing to say we already have 2 starting safeties on the Bears. But like in the second round, look at the kind of football player you're getting, right? All-American as a junior. He was nation's top defender. I mean, this is a stud player that is best player available. You take him. And then, hey, let's just say Brisker is healthy, but now you have Watts. You can let Brisker leave in free agency and kind of play the comp pick game, or he just fills right in for Byard or whatever. Like you just don't pass on excellent football players, and that's what I like about this pick. That's what I like about what the draft or the chat.
Yeah, I think I might like this pick for the value more than I do the Kenneth Grant pick, to be honest.
Yeah, and then so next pick was 41. And this is where we did go running back. They did go running back, which I'm totally on board with running back. Where I was personally surprised was the consensus on Judkins. There was still Caleb Johnson on the board. There was still Trayvon Henderson. And it was, not that we picked Judkins. I was surprised by the consensus of Judkins.
He would have been the third one on my list with those 3 guys left. But you can't get upset about it. I mean, walking away with Quinshon Judkins, you're setting yourself up. I think he's a good combination with DeAndre Swift. He's a guy who can honestly, truly carry the load if Swift isn't here the following year. My biggest concern with him is the mileage. He's got a lot of touches in college.
Yeah, you can look at that. Super productive going all the way back to his freshman year at Ole Miss, 1,500 yards as a freshman. I mean, the guy's a stud. The one thing that I think too much emphasis is getting put on, or tell me if I'm wrong on this one, but we need to compliment DeAndre Swift. If Swift is lightning, then we need a thunder. which
Yeah,
Swift isn't going to be on this team in 2 years. So still just get the best player available. And so my guy there is Travion Henderson. I believe that he's just that more weapon than running back, that kind of what they have in Detroit. So I would have gone Travion Henderson for sure, but like is a very good running back, a very solid running back. It's nice to know that in the second round, they're going to come up with a pretty solid running back. If we go to the next slide here, we can see kind of the rest of the player pool who is available at these 2 picks. The ones with the stars there are the ones that chat seemed to be focused on most. They didn't really mention a bunch of these other guys. But at the bottom of that list are kind of the ones that I'm thinking, or hey, should we have considered more edge or trenches rather than kind of getting 2 non-value positions. The 2 names that stand out to me there are Donovan Jackson and Landon Jackson. That could have been a very different shape of your draft class if those are the 2 players you end up with. I'm still okay with Watts and Judkins, but I think that if you really want to shape your draft class towards the trenches, you start off with Grant, Jackson, and Jackson. That's addressing the trenches.
Yeah, for me, just going off my rankings, Donovan Jackson would have been the guy that I would have taken over Judkins. And I probably would have taken the chance of trying to get one of those running backs who would have fallen into the 3rd round.
Yeah, I mean, is Cam Scatterbo really that much worse than Judkins? I definitely have him lower on my rankings than Judkins, 100%. But, based on what we were able to do in the draft later in the trenches, maybe this is a pivot point. So again, these are some of the players that maybe we would have considered packaging 2 third-round picks to get back towards the end of the second round to draft, but Chad also did not want to do that. So our first pick in the 3rd round was 72. I want to see what we ended up with there. So as soon as got to this pick, me stood out as the best available player. Rob, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I have no issues here at all. I think that Mason Taylor obviously has a good pedigree with his dad being Jason Taylor, the former Hall of Fame defensive end for the Miami Dolphins. He's one of the younger guys, so he's probably going to still develop beyond what he's already done. He doesn't have the touchdown production there at LSU, but it doesn't really concern me. That seems to be the case for a lot of tight ends, but then they come into the NFL and they'll end up getting 6-7 a year. So not overly concerned about that, but yeah, just another good football player, probably one of the best players that were available on the board. And I have no qualms with this at all.
Yeah, none at all with this one, because when we got to these 2 picks, 72 and 80, we can go to the next one here too. Isaiah Bond, stud wide receiver, projects into the slot. Based on your rankings, I think Mason Taylor and Isaiah Bond were 2 of the 3 or 4 top players left available. So rather than force ourselves into, there actually was a defensive end or 2 worth considering when you get to the next slide if you want, but there really wasn't much in the way of offensive line. So I'm 100% totally on board with best player available here in that 3rd round. You take the guys who fall, but that even more goes back to those 2 picks in the 2nd round where we might have been tiered. Judkins is a good player and running back's position to need, I understand, but so are the trenches. So should we have gotten, more of a 2nd round talent in the trenches as opposed to safety and running back? I think that's a discussion worth having. But here in this 3rd round, taking guys who are way on top of your board, I think is the way to go.
Yeah. Jalen Royals, you got the asterisks here again for people who are being talked about a lot. And Jalen Royals was the guy that they were kind of weighing the options with between him and Bond. And I had a coin flip with these guys, but I think either one of them, I know Jalen Royals is higher in a lot of, national media analyst boards. So maybe he's the better option. I know Bond has a little bit of from what I'm understanding, and I didn't realize it until recently, some people think he's kind of a diva, but when it comes to wide receivers, that's usually a good thing.
I mean, what he's supposed to do, that's fine.
That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think defensive end probably should have been attacked a little bit earlier, but it's hard to argue because I liked all the other players that were chosen. So,
right. So as we got to the 5th round, we did pick up another 5th round pick. So we had 2, and Chet did seem to think, all right, we need to make up for our shortcomings with those first 5 picks and attack edge, attack offensive line. And those were kind of the best available. Batty was clearly best available defensive end, or so we thought. And then Emory Jones was one of these kind of, let's call it pedigree picks, a guy who was a highly thought of recruit going into college, started 3 years, tons of reps under his belt, but for whatever reason, his draft stock is falling. So, the 5th round, you take a risk on a guy with that. And then also full disclosure, I don't know if anybody has any idea about these 5th round prospects so much right now. We're still a few weeks out from the draft. Hopefully we'll all be able to educate ourselves a little bit further. Especially with things like Dane Brugler's The Beast coming out today, we'll be able to kind of really get a better look at all the depth of the prospects here in that 5th round.
400 prospects. I can't get to I can't even get to 200, and he gets to 400.
Yeah, it's insane with the detail and everything that he gets to do with it too. It's really impressive.
Yeah.
But as far as chat, just kind of addressing shortcomings of needs as opposed to strictly best player available in an area of the draft we're not experts in. Totally okay with Batty and Jones here.
Yeah, I actually like Batty, and obviously we know enough about Jones just because he was a higher prospect. Ryan Fitzgerald to me is the top kicker in the draft, so throwing a kicker in there at the end of the round, into the middle of the 7th round, I think is a fantastic idea, especially because I'm highly against keeping Cairo Santos again. And then we went Jacavius Marks, and we only did that just because we thought his name was fun, and we think that they will double up at running back, whether it's in the draft or if it's in undrafted free agency. But I just got to shout out here, Flying Scotsman. I just put a draft video out on defensive ends that should be available in the 2nd and 3rd round for the Bears. And he basically said, look, I am the substitute teacher from Key and Peele. I can never pronounce these guys' names. So I'm just going to say Jaquelin Marks. That's what we're going to call him now. Welcome to the Chicago Bears.
And to your point, Ben Johnson did telegraph a little bit at the owners' meetings that 2 running backs could be picked up here in the draft, one in the middle and one, whether that's 7th round or undrafted free agency. There's a lot of depth at running back. So I don't know how well everyone can see that, but that's what PFF rated us as. That's the entire draft class in one list there. We came away with a solid B.
Yep.
They liked Isaiah Bond was actually one of my favorite picks in this draft. I love getting a guy you had ranked at 51 or 52 at pick 80. But that's why you have a draft. That's why this game even exists. Different people have different values. So you get one that falls to you. If someone else doesn't like it, well, prove it on the field. It's totally fine.
Yep. 100%. And obviously the Emory Jones pick is pulling that B down. Otherwise, I think it'd be a B+.
So what's your overall grade for chat here? What are you grading chat?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a B+. I think we should have attacked the trenches a little bit more. I love Mason Taylor, but I might have probably swapped that out with the trench guy, or swapped out Judkins and taken the trench guy there at Donovan Jackson at 42 and probably got the running back at 72. And then fought out at 80. Maybe we would have went Mason Taylor there at 80 over, a guy like Isaiah Bond. But I just think maybe attacking the trenches a little bit earlier, I think I would have been a little bit happier. I'm not really fond of Tyler Batty as he's a good prospect for a developmental guy there in the 5th, but he's not moving the needle, I would say. Austin Booker to me was a better prospect.
Yeah, and I'm going solid B, maybe closer to B- than B in there. It's just, you're touching on the trenches. But the biggest thing I do like about this draft class is those first 4 picks. When I see those names, I just see football players. So I really,
and it's Grant, baby.
I really like that part of it. I think Chad did a great job there. It's just, were there different spots where different areas in the same tier could have been addressed. Like, obviously, I will never criticize what they did in the 3rd round, taking clearly best player available. That's fine. It's more in that 2nd round when you had guys in the same tier, should different positions have been selected.
And I think to that point, and we'll wrap this up here and call it a night, but cheers to them. I think they did a really good job, but at the same time, we don't know how the draft is going to play out. So it's like if you have a guy that you really want, whether it's we saw it with Kyron Amagaji last year. I'm not a huge fan. I'm hoping he develops, but we've talked about this in years past. If you feel like you have a guy and you want to go get him because you're not sure he's going to be there at your next pick, you go get him. So
right.
Well, we'll just have to hope that
it's not a reach if you don't think he's going to be there at your next pick, right?
Exactly.
Kind of a motto.
Exactly.
So,
Now, just no more Shane McClellans.
but wrapping this up, though, guys, we had a blast meeting everybody, chatting with everybody. I want to give a shout out to some of the most active commenters. Really just enjoyed hearing everybody's thoughts, everybody having a good time, different opinions, but nobody getting upset. Like it was great, truly enjoyable time. It's been really fun to see this kind of Hallis Huddle community build and grow over these past few weeks, and I hope everyone else is enjoying it as much as we are.
Yeah. So if you are liking it, again, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the comment section. Don't be afraid to ask questions that have nothing to do with current episodes. Maybe there's things you want to talk about that maybe we'll be addressing here in the near future. Maybe there's prospects you would like, to hear opinions on. Put them in the comment section. Let's chat it out. Like Bob said, we just want to keep growing the channel, growing the community, having those continued conversations. They don't have to be just us.
That's right. Yep. Let's see those comments, everybody.
All right. Well, for now, bear down, claws up.